Hello, everyone. My name is Edward Jie. I'm with Gaofeng Advisory Company. We are a management and strategy consulting firm with roots in China. Today, on this episode, I'm very delighted to have a good friend, a good partner, and someone who's really knowledgeable in the auto industry, in particular here in China, Bill Russo, to be my guest on this show today. Bill has been working in the auto industry for a long time. And has been in China for a long time. Bill and I worked together for 15 years, right, Bill? It's 15 years together on many projects for our auto clients. So today I'm very delighted. And Bill, maybe you can start by summarizing your own experience in the auto industry as well as here in China to our audience.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Ed. I appreciate the opportunity. As Ed said, well, we've known each other for a decade and a half, and collaborated very well over a course of several years working with clients in the automotive industry here in China. I came to China in 2004, then as head of Chrysler's Northeast Asia business, and I've really been privileged to have the opportunity to kind of witness the creation of a whole new way of thinking about this industry. China has acted as an accelerator for the commercialization of technology and doing it in ways that I think the rest of the world needs to better understand in order to participate in that. My career spans 4 decades now. Worked in Detroit for 17 years prior to coming to China, and now spending the last 19 years here. 4 which were with Chrysler, and now 15 years working in advisory work with automotive clients with Ed, now currently with my current firm, Automobility, where we focus on technology, commercialization, and investment.
Fantastic. You're also the chair of the automotive committee in the American Chamber of Commerce here in Shanghai, right?
That's correct.
So yeah, that also gives you a lot of, yeah, I think you've done a very good job, because I've heard a lot of good things about that from my Shanghai AmCham people. So that's really good. Thanks, Bill. Today is April 25th, and the Shanghai Auto Show has been going on for about a week. And this is a tremendous event, because there's a lot of people here, a lot of companies are here, a lot of people are attending. So what's your key takeaways from the Shanghai Auto Show this year, Bill?
Yeah, well, we haven't had one that has had the representation of the global industry. I mean, there have been auto shows in China for the last few years, but not attended by the world. The beauty of the China auto shows, which I've attended now every year since 2004, except for last year when we didn't have one because of the lockdown period. They really truly offer the only unique opportunity to see all of the industry in one place. I think it was the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once that won the Academy Award. That's what you have at the auto show. You have every brand in the world from everywhere all in one place. And that's a unique opportunity to get a glimpse at how the world looks at China and how China's looking at itself and in its role in the world. And in short, my takeaways are that China is, as I said earlier, accelerating the commercialization of the technologies used in the 21st century automobile industry and in the transportation sector in general. We saw it a decade ago at the beginning of this with ride hailing and how quickly that commercialized at scale in China. We're seeing it in full force at Auto Shanghai this year with in-car connectivity and electric propulsion. The likes of which and the speed at which they're being implemented in vehicle platforms among the Chinese competitors is really at a rate that you don't see anywhere else in the world. We're seeing a new breed of smart EV makers that are coming into being in China, and they're putting more emphasis on digital technology, immersive experiences, and services. And these types of companies like Li Auto, often reveal technology when they talk about their press conferences. They reveal technology before they even talk about the products. And traditional car companies including the legacy Chinese, are having a sort of a different paradigm about the way they approach the market. They think more in a retrofit of traditional car mode, as opposed to creating a whole new way of creating value for customers. And I think that's the part that really stands apart, is that the Chinese companies are really attempting to pioneer new ways of delivering value to the market.
Yeah, I think I also went to the auto show. To me, the overwhelming presence of the Chinese automakers relative to the foreign automakers is overwhelming, and it's the progress that the Chinese automakers have made just in the span of last 4 years. Because we, as you said, we haven't had the auto show in 4 years because of the pandemic. But that progress, the pace and the magnitude of progress was incredible. So fundamentally, right? Why did it happen, Bill? Why were some of the Chinese guys, not everyone, right? As you said, but there's a lot of Chinese guys too in the auto show.
Yeah.
Not only a few guys, but a lot. Why it happened? Why did it happen this way?
Well, to kind of put it in context, it's been 4 years since executives from multinational companies have been able to come to China. And I think the almost uniform reaction was that they were rather surprised by how quickly, not only at the auto show, the competitive landscape has changed, but how evident that is when you walk around on the streets of Shanghai.
Yeah.
Now more than half of vehicles that are being sold in Shanghai are new energy vehicles. If you go back to 2019, the last time we had an international auto show in Shanghai that was attended by overseas guests, the NEV market, new energy vehicle market, was a size of 1.2 million vehicles out of a total market size of about 26 million. It was less than 5%. This past year, 2022, it was 6.9 million NEVs out of 27 million units sold, right? So the only growth, if you do the quick math, in the market has been the electric vehicle side. The traditional lane has been has squeezed down into a smaller lane. So that is not an advantage for the global auto industry. And when you think about why is this happening faster in China? It's a combination of factors. You have a less than deeply rooted set of competitors. You do have a supportive government, public and private partnership, which creates, I think, a more progressive attitude toward what the rest of the world would regard as riskier bets, right? More infrastructure in place to support the daily usage of electric vehicles, de-risks the consumer attitude. The consumers in China have, I think, much more experimental mindset in the way they view products, and they see an EV as a new technology, and it's exciting in that regard. And the Chinese companies are creating solutions that you won't find at the price points. Particularly, they're delivering good value, they're delivering good technology, and at a reasonable price point. It's quite a special pace of acceleration that you see here, and I think it's through a combination of the factors that I've talked about.
One of the companies that people have now talk about a lot is BYD. I say 4 years ago, some people know about BYD, but not a lot of people knew about BYD, in particular people outside of the auto industry. But I find that today, not only people in the auto industry, but people outside of the auto industry also know about BYD, talk about BYD, and consider BYD as a forerunner in the industry. What happened? What happened to BYD? Why were they able to accelerate this growth in such a short period of time?
And a lot of, I think, foreign eyes look at companies in China, they think, well, they get a whole lot of backing from the government. BYD is a private company. They're a private company led by Wang Chuanfu, an entrepreneur. This is the new breed of businesses that you see coming on the scene in China. BYD does dominate by far the new energy vehicle market, where they sold 1.8 million units last year, more than Tesla. They're double in the BEV category. They're double battery electric vehicle category. They're more than double the size of Tesla already. And in the plug-in hybrid category, they pretty much have 2/3 of the market already in China. What is it that makes BYD tick? Let's talk about that. First of all, they were founded probably about 20 years ago. Well, actually, they pre-existed as a car company, but as a car company, it was 2 decades ago that they came into being. And it was a pivot or a jump, as you like to call it, Ed, from another industry, which was the battery industry and the cell phone industry, into the automotive sector. And again, their value proposition was the core technology that I'm really good at has relevancy in another industry, automotive. So they jumped into the automotive industry with a core proposition of being able to vertically integrate the battery technology into the vehicle. Warren Buffett invested in them about 15 years ago, long before anybody even knew they existed, because the understanding that the battery technology and the ability to commercialize that at scale is going to be a critical capability set needed for the electric vehicle development. So BYD is successful because of vertical integration, because they are doing in the 21st century what Henry Ford did in the 20th. Henry Ford democratized access to affordable personal transportation with a vertically integrated business model. BYD is doing that in the 21st century for the electric vehicle with a very efficient supply chain management and vertically integrated supply chains around key components.
That's a real, impressive story, and the way that you put it and comparing BYD with Ford is a real testimony on how important this company has become and how prevalent it is for the consumers. In addition to BYD, there's also a whole bunch of other Chinese EV players who have come to become quite prominent, and a group of companies that most people in China would call the new forces, i.e. the new emerging players that emerged only in the last decade and become also quite established today in the EV space. And these are NIO, NIO, XPeng, and Li Auto. These guys have came from nowhere and become quite prevalent. Can you talk a little bit about these guys? Why were they able to come from nowhere to become quite prominent, and what's the difference between each of their strategies?
Right, and that's the interesting thing about how China is developing in the automotive sector is what you have with these new forces are companies that have chosen a different value. You can classify these companies by type. In China, you have traditional auto industry companies. They were born in the sort of Summer and J level. And these are the BAICs, the FAWs, these Shanghai Auto types of companies. Then you have the entrepreneurial group, BYD being one, which I would call a bit more disruptive, a bit more experimental. This would be companies like Geely, BYD, Great Wall. Not as, they're clearly not state-owned, they're more private businesses led by entrepreneurs. And then you have also entrepreneurial in nature, this group of what you call new forces. These are technology companies. These are what I would call smart device or smart EV makers. Their focus is building an intelligent and connected vehicle. Their focus is to be leading in the technology dimensions, not just in the hardware sense, but in the digital sense. Their differentiation point is going to be around specific technology attributes, creating immersive experiences, creating a more community-oriented, services-oriented, or what Neil likes to call user-centric business model. And what's interesting about these companies is if you go to their announcements, they tend to talk about the technology before they ever talk about the cars, which would never happen from a traditional automaker. NIO introduced this year sort of a user community as advocates right at the stand, where they bring their what they call users, their customers, in to be advocates for the brand. William Li Bin, their CEO, talked about having almost a yearly refresh cycle, which is a more technology-oriented way of thinking about the car. Traditional companies don't renew their cars every year. It would be too expensive. But a technology company will refresh the technical content and give people a reason to come back because they have an upgradable opportunity within the even 1 year of the launch of a new vehicle, like they did this year with the ET7. Xiaopeng's announcement this year was more oriented toward the technology roadmap and the software-defined architecture and the integrated electronics architecture of their vehicle. Yes, they introduced a new vehicle, the G6. You have to have something exciting to bring people back to the showroom. But again, the point of emphasis was their software architecture, their new technology platform architecture. And Li Auto is trying to step out of the comfort zone of the PHEV category by introducing a better battery electric vehicle technology. But most of their point of emphasis was on their driver assisted technologies, which, unlike Tesla, requires you to pay for it. They're going to add it as a feature that's part of the base value proposition of the car. So in all cases, these new technology-oriented companies are emphasizing tech, not just the product.
So these Chinese companies are fundamentally very innovative, right? They take a very different approach to thinking about a car versus the incumbent OEMs, whether they're foreign or Chinese or other
Right.
types, right? They would look at it, look at a car as a car, right? From a transportation vehicle standpoint, whereas these
Right.
Chinese guys,
It's the difference between selling the physical device
Yeah.
versus selling the technology or the user experience of a smart device. If you look at the Chinese car companies in general, the Chinese, whether they're smart EV or EV companies in general, far more emphasis on HMI, on human machine ergonomics around, you could do a quick visualization of
Yeah.
how much square inch space of screen is in a Chinese vehicle versus a foreign vehicle. Significant difference.
So what would happen to the foreign OEMs then? Do they still have a chance in the EV space in China,
Well,
or for the matter in the rest of the world? What's your view on that?
Okay, so foreign OEMs, the writing's on the wall for the foreign OEMs. First of all, they have a choice to make. Do I stay in China and try to race with the new breed of Chinese competition, or do I retreat and retrench and try to figure out how to stay competitive in my home market, which is more comfortable? My view, and I think you would agree, is that's not really that's not a 21st century strategy. That's a retreat and hope for the best strategy.
Right.
First of all, China didn't close its market to foreign competition. In fact, Tesla got the best deal ever with setting up their gigafactory here in Shanghai and leveraging it for global supply chain as well as export. Tesla's able to fight a competitive battle internationally better because they have the China footprint and the scale of China working for the global system. If foreign companies choose to do that, they can, but they have to reimagine their business structure and business model and products in order to compete in a market like China. And that's not easy to do in a business that is run by, I'd say, more conservative financial systems. It's a riskier business to be in now because you got to make bigger bets on technology. You got to do more to vertically integrate supply chain, which is capital intensive. And you've got to create a technology value proposition, which requires a rethink on how you design your products. A lot of that is a pretty steep hill for companies that are stressed on their balance sheet for finding the capital needed to stay competitive in a market like this. But I don't think there's a choice. If you want to be a global company in the 21st century, if you want to race to the future of mobility, you have to have, you have to play at the Olympic level. And right now, the Olympics for the automotive industry in the 21st century are being hosted in China.
I heard you talk about, Bill, about at least one major foreign OEMs who have taken a retreat strategy from China, and you really didn't think that company. Well, you would say that that strategy is not the right strategy for that foreign OEM, but that's happening already. There's still a lot of foreign OEMs participating in the auto market today in China, albeit that the market share have steadily declined. At the same time, do you think there's still a possibility for the foreign OEMs to come back if they do the right things, quote unquote, the right things? If everything is perfect, do they have a chance to come back? By the way, I think one point that you made was very important, because a lot of people, in particular those outside of China, have a perception that somehow the Chinese government would block foreign companies to be successful in China. That's why the foreign companies are not doing well in China, because of the Chinese government blocking foreign companies. But in reality, including that in the auto industry, the Chinese government actually opened up the market for foreign companies even more. So right now, this is a full competitive space. Whoever is good, as you said, whoever is innovative can come out ahead. Who's not actually will be falling behind, right? So do they still have a chance, Bill?
Yes, but it requires a rethink of your business model. Your traditional manufacturing-centric business model is the one that's under stress. Yes, there are things you probably need to do, which is have a more controllable access to the critical technologies upstream from your manufacturing business. Obviously, that means batteries, that means chips, that means technologies that integrate into the vehicle and create a unique user experience. You need to have some degree of branded right to win to integrate those technologies into the vehicle. But that's traditional, right? That's a tradition. It may be a technology step away from what you historically have been doing, but you can conceive of how to do that. Doing that with a partner ecosystem in China is difficult for a lot of companies to consider, but it has to be considered. Your manufacturing and supply chain partnerships need to be rethought in the era of the smart electric vehicle. That's step one. Step two, the smartness part is a services-oriented business model. That requires new partnerships. And in order to play in China and the digital world, you have to have a local partner ecosystem to work with. And there's nothing written down or said that says a foreign company can't be a partner to a local player, either on the upstream or on the downstream side. But that business of cooperating with companies that are not your traditional companies, both technology and service, is something outside of the scope of mind of the traditional automaker, the traditional global automaker. But as Tesla is showing, it's possible for companies to come to China and reimagine how they structure their business. The biggest challenge aside from all of what I've said, the biggest challenge a lot of multinationals have is how to exist in partnership that may have already to this new way. It's possible to do that, but they have to imagine how they can get out of them, or not get out of, but how they adapt the business structure they currently have to the 21st century business model.
So it's going to be a transformational change that these foreign companies need to make, not anything that's incremental, right, Bill? Another thing is
Absolutely.
Back to the option of retreat, right? Yeah, you can retreat, but the Chinese are also coming your way, right? The Chinese has become major exporter of EVs to many other parts of the world. So, can you actually fully, really retreat and really protect yourself? What do you think? Is it possible, or do you think the Chinese would become really formidable on a global basis at some point in the future?
I think it's happening right now. China is already, since 2 years ago, has tripled its export volume to more than 3 million units. And this year, China will likely surpass Japan to become the largest automotive export country in the world. Export's only a signal that eventually those companies are going to become truly global companies. In other words, put their factories into markets outside of China. So I think the writing again is on the wall. A retreat strategy is just leaving the beach open for your competition to take, and then they will eventually come right after the global markets that you're currently in. And one thing that you have to say about the Chinese companies is the value proposition of what China can do to build affordable and attractive technology solutions in the 21st century mobility solution set. That's universally, the demand for that is universal. Affordability sells everywhere in the world. And technology innovation at the scale of China is something that's going to help, I think, find markets. There will be help for the Chinese companies to find markets globally for those types of products and solutions.
Back to BYD. What amazes me about BYD is the range of products they're able to come up. At the top end, they have a model called U8 that you know very well, is over 1 million RMB per car. Very, very impressive model. But at the so-called low end, they also have a very affordable car, which is what you told me last week, Seagull, which is being sold at 100,000 RMB. And something like a Seagull, in my view, is going to be really popular in the market, in particular in the developing markets, not only in China, but also outside of China. What's your view on Seagull? And tell our audience a little bit more about this incredible model.
Yeah, as you had indicated, BYD is probably it's got the broadest range of coverage. It didn't start, it started out with I'd say a mid-market sort of Henry Ford, as I said earlier, way of positioning itself, which means you can get affordable solutions from this company. And I think for every Chinese company, there's always, how do I create a range where I can price step customers to different solutions at different, price points. But the amazing thing is they've now introduced a new technology, a suspension technology, a smart chassis technology that is sort of the backbone for their more premium models. So they've introduced this Yanwang, which is their high-end brand at over 1 million RMB. They also have sort of the artifact of a joint venture with Daimler, a brand called Denza, which is the best-selling MPV in the country, which sold over 10,000 units in the month of March. By the way, 10,000 units, slightly more than 10,000 units, was more sales for that brand, Denza, than all of the ID series Volkswagen units combined. So that's how dominant BYD is in their position in the market, is they can bring a former JD brand to be a #1 selling product into their portfolio and do it with a differentiated product and value proposition. Now they're going broader and lower in price with the BYD brand, with the product called Seagull, which is a well-equipped car for just over $11,000 US. Really, this car has 4 doors, power windows on each door, airbags front and back. It's got a 10-inch screen. It has a 300 to 400 kilometer range, depending on the battery. It'll have a BYD Blade battery. This truly is going to be a disruptive offering. So this is a company that can cover the full range from affordable value for the money EV all the way up to premium, and dominate across that full range of pricing. We haven't seen the likes of a competitor like this in the automotive industry in a long time, and they really do dominate the NEV development here in China. And one area that they're really dominant in is plug-in hybrids, where they have more than 2/3 of the market so far this year.
Bill, you've been working in China for a long time, as you said very early on. What's your takeaway from working in China in general? I mean, you are an auto expert, but you also live in China. You work with you live in a community. You see how China evolved. What's your takeaways and how, what are the things that you want to share with our audience, in particular audience outside of China? What's the real situation here in China, as an American working in China for a long time, intimately with Chinese clients and other people? What's your key takeaways?
Yeah, first of all, the difference between China and globally, it's the China auto industry or China market in general is defined by what I would call co-opetition between local and foreign. And you have to embrace that because that's the best way to stay in the game in China and will make for globally competitive businesses. Made in China products have proven their cost advantages for years, not in other sectors. And it's no surprise that the same rules are going to apply in the automotive industry as it migrates into this smart EV era. Industrial collaborations require that each player find a suitable, sort of value for the relationship in establishing sort of a joint way, not necessarily joint venture, but a joint way of creating value that increases the pie for everyone. Building an ecosystem mindset into the business of the global company, where you can work across borders, not in competition, but in collaboration to make the pie bigger for all. Companies that learn how to do that will do very well in China. Companies that struggle to do that want to have everything for themselves, they will struggle. And I think that will be the case in the industry going forward.
Hi, Bill. Thank you very much for your time so far. You have answered a lot of questions with a lot of insights. One final question for you, Bill. How could people find you in case they would like to reach out to you and try to seek your expertise?
Well, thanks again, Ed, for the opportunity. I appreciate the dialogue, and it's always great to share what's happening in China, and love to continue the conversation. I think the best way to reach is always through our ecosystem. We've worked together for a decade and a half and have a great collaboration working with the multinationals and local Chinese car companies and suppliers. Feel free to reach out to Ed. Happy to work together, collaborating with clients on the challenging topics that we're all faced with in the automotive industry, and look forward to continuing to work on some of the more challenging problems that this industry faces going forward into this very exciting future of mobility.
I know that you're very active on LinkedIn too, so in case people would like to reach you directly on LinkedIn, they could do that too, right?
Social media is a wonderful tool. I think we all know, we post frequently on our respective channels. So yeah, feel free to engage in dialogue that way. It's a great way to get to know each other before we actually personally meet each other.
And for people who are in Shanghai or in mainland China in general, because you are the chairman for the automotive practice in Shanghai AmCham, so people can also come directly to your sessions. Correct?
Oh, absolutely. We do monthly webinars. We try to keep everyone posted on what's happening in the automotive industry in China. So we do frequently communicate both newsletters, which we do post into our LinkedIn channels, and we host a monthly committee webinar that's open to the public to participate in, and obviously free for AmCham members. So we look forward to engaging dialogue there as well with the broader community.
That's great. Well, thank you very much, Bill. It's been fascinating talking to you.
Thanks a lot, Ed.
Goodbye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.